Thank you, Mr. Chairman. I'll ask my question, if I may, of Mr. Robichaud first. Now, I heard you speak about the decriminalisation of possession, 5 grams for youth, and other witnesses have said that decriminalising possession of 5 grams for Canadian youth is the equivalent of a lot more in the hands of our young people. And in 2016, there are 55,000 offences that were reported to the police in relation to cannabis use. That's 23 charges in relation to cannabis. And you mentioned in your notes that there was a lot of pressure being brought to bear on the judicial system. So I'd like to hear your opinion about that, and whether C55 will help to lighten that burden, or rather 45.
Last name, there was an assumption to be made. I apologize, I don't speak French proficiently. But I think what your question related to is disproportionate treatment of youth as it relates to 5 grams and 30 grams as adults. Extrapolating upon that and inferring as much as I can from your question, the biggest problem with the 5 grams, and Mr. Friedman has pointed this out already, is we're criminalizing an aspect for youth that is entirely asymmetrical to adults. No other aspect in the criminal code does this, as that I'm aware of. I called an expert in youth criminal law today on this, and he's of the same view. And I hope this is answering the question, but the issue has many problems with it. From a constitutional point of view, I suspect the courts are going to step in and say that you can't treat people differently based upon age on the section, on the amount. And the other problem, which is far more troubling, is 2 parts that are far more troubling. One is that it seems to go against the legislation, both on the Youth Criminal Justice Act and the Cannabis Act, in stating that we're trying to protect youth and reintegrate them back into society, because it triggers, of course, another issue. And I'll give a practical example that I think we can all understand. Imagine a youth who is charged with 8 grams of marijuana. Let's move it up a little bit to see what would be realistic of a prosecution. Let's say they're charged with 30 grams of marijuana, and they are prosecuted by way of summary conviction. They go to Youth Criminal Justice Act. They receive nothing more than a reprimand. It's a sealed record. Great, I suppose. But then what happens is that youth, in addition to a reprimand, is placed on some conditions. That youth fails to show up to the probation officer. They're now, as an adult, in breach of their probation. That means they're within that sealed period, is essentially opened it back up, and they've obtained a permanent adult criminal record than something that an adult never could. So that alone is problematic with reintegration, employment, not to mention they'll be permanently banned into the United States into entry because of this permanent record, because of the unsealing that has come as a result of a trivial breach on the youth that never would have been an offense as an adult.
Thank you.
Okay, that's it. Okay, Senator Gold.
Thank you, Chair. Question for all.